Hey everybody, welcome to Between the Lions, an oral history of the ongoing mission by the musical collective known as My Soul Among Lions to put all 150 psalms from the Bible to music, which is divided into bite-sized bi-weekly chunks. So hello again, it's been 2 weeks and we are doing our third episode, going to talk about another version of Psalm 1 that My Soul Among Lions produced. I am Nathan Alberson, your humble and obedient host, creative director for Warhorn Media, where My Soul Among Lions makes their home, also a lyricist and contributor to the project. Got Pastor Jake Menzel, lyricist, contributor, CEO of Warhorn Media. How we doing, Jake?
Good. How are you, Nathan?
I'm doing fantastic, phenomenal. Couldn't be happier to be here. I love talking about the creative process. It's one of my favorite things to do in life, and that's what we're doing today. And the other gentleman that's joining us, as he has for the past few episodes, is Pastor Philip Moyer.
Hello.
One of the overseers and musical producers of My Soul Among Lions, lyricist, singer, guitarist.
Somehow you haven't called me a rejected lyricist.
Rejected lyricist? You know what? Everyone
you
on...
have to reject your own lyrics, though, don't you? I don't know.
I do, yeah.
Everyone on the project is a rejected lyricist or a rejected melodicist or a rejected something or other, because if people don't know, that's how the creative process works, is you come up with a lot of stuff and you reject a lot of it. And especially in these early days with these first psalms that we're starting to talk about, we really did have a lot of people contributing. We were having these meetings where people would get together and we'd talk it through. And so a lot of bad ideas came out of that. And a lot of those bad ideas were rejected. But also, 10 good ideas came, or 15, or however many songs are on the album. So, and there's people that came up with one good idea and 100 bad ones. There's people that came up with 100 good ideas and 4 or 5 bad ones. It's just, that's the process. Mm-hmm. But we are here specifically to talk about the creative process that resulted in Night and Day, which is the first song on the first My Soul Among Lions album. It's an adaptation of Psalm 1. If you listened previously on Between the Lines, you heard that we actually already had a Psalm 1 in the hopper. Mm-hmm. So what happened to that one? Why didn't we just roll that into the first track of the album?
Well, we could have, but we were, like we said, we're trying to create something that is a little more, user-friendly, worship-friendly, simple, more accessible, and it would have worked fine for that. But, we all set out to write a whole batch of new songs. We wanted to start fresh, and that's what we got. Mm-hmm. We got something really different from the first one. And for that reason, I totally rejected it. I wasn't happy with it because I had drawn to love the other version.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think having the other version allowed this one to become what it was, because the other one was, on the one hand, like we talked about last time, musically it was, a little more edgy rock and roll, in its original form. But lyrically, it was just straightforward, line by line, the psalm almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so with this one, there's a lot of creative license that was taken. The simplicity and the straightforward way that the psalm is written was really dressed up poetically. And we were very willing early on to play with a lot of things like that and take those kinds of risks and try to figure out what is a good psalm setting. What is it? How does it read? How does it scan? At the end of the day, it needs to bring the text of Scripture to life for people that we're convinced of. But yeah, this took a very different direction than that first one. I'm with you, Phil. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, I think at the time we had the Summer Psalm series, right? And so
our church would sing a psalm and preach on that same psalm each Sunday.
Yeah, and so it was an opportunity to debut, what we had come up with, and we had this goal we had to reach every week, which was pretty stressful. So we already had the other Psalm 1, which of course we sang in worship. And then we had this one, which was then our offertory, a good opportunity to give something new. And I remember me and Jody, it was just he and myself standing there with a mic, and maybe him with a guitar. Maybe I had a guitar too. It wasn't the same as what ended up on the album.
Right.
I was just like, this is really interesting. Interesting melody. It had this kind of, an Irish...
I was listening to this morning.
Folky,
it's like old-fashioned medieval almost.
I don't
know if there's something about that chord structure that's intrinsically medieval, or it reminds me of like Scarborough Fair and Greensleeves and those kinds of things.
Jody's a Baroque kind of guy.
Yeah,
right. Baroque violinist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't making a pun. No, he studied Baroque violin.
Yeah. And he's beautifully Baroque. And,
Thank you for clarifying what I was saying. No, he came to IU to get his PhD in Baroque violin performance.
Right.
And he's got some of that.
It's in him.
But have this be the one that debuted the series. To me, I will admit, I was with you guys. It was cool. It was interesting, but it felt a little bit like, why are we debuting Maxwell's Silver Hammer instead of like Hey Jude? I know we've got Hey Jude. Why don't we? It's not. I think we should say we all like this song.
Oh yeah,
now
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, this one, at least in my book, has gone from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what I thought of it in the beginning, and that's not to say that the lyrics weren't great. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but just. You know, I judge a lot of things based on music. That's what I've been involved with my whole life. And, you know, to me, it's just like, oh, okay. But when we arranged it, when we put it all together, it was just like, wow, this is just a beautiful psalm. So I love it. It's one of my favorites now.
I mean, early on, it was, hey, I thought our job here was to really make these psalms pop for people and help them really grasp them. And this felt to me like we were covering up the simplicity of Psalm 1 with this sort of over-poeticized approach. But the great thing about a song is that you get to live with it. And as you live with it, it gets down in you, it resonates more and more, it opens up, and there are more things to discover about it. And that's, I think, one of the real virtues of this song, both in the way it's written and lyrically and the way that it's arranged, is there's just a lot that keeps you coming back to it and keeps you interested and gives you a different approach to meditating on the words and sentiments of Psalm 1.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Maybe we should talk a little bit about this. And this is a theme I'm sure we'll touch on a lot. But I would say some of our songs are pretty straight. You just call them psalm settings. They are the psalm, basically. You could make an argument that they are a version, a translation, if you like, of the psalm. Some of our songs are very much songs based upon the Psalms. They are,
that's right, yeah.
They take creative license. They are their own thing. Nobody would really mistake them for actually being the inspired word of God.
They capture the thrust of them.
They capture the thrust. I almost think of them as advertisements. Like, if you like this, then you should read your Bible. Exactly. It's even better.
Yeah.
But we do everything on that spectrum.
Yeah. And I think each of us have done or contributed to everything on the spectrum.
Absolutely.
And experimented with both ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about some of our songs that are really just creative, almost flights of fancy, and then we'll talk about some of our songs that are really direct adaptations. This one was one of the first times that we let ourselves, as Jake said, get a little bit more poetic, take a little bit more license, build on the psalm.
Take more poetic license, yeah. Yeah, if you just look at, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, to, O happy man that does not walk in paths that wicked men devise. He darkens not the sinner's lair, nor occupies the scoffer's chair. Or he's like a tree that's planted deep beside the river waters wide, that bears in season its good fruit and keeps its leaves by some good root. That fertile root's the law of God.
It's beautiful, but it takes me back in a King James kind of way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what it is about it. Maybe the structure of how the words fit together.
Right. It's adding a kind of formal dignity to the psalm that if you just read the psalm in a good modern translation, you wouldn't actually. The psalm is very simple.
Mm-hmm. He's like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season. Its leaf does not wither.
The psalm is just, this thing is like this thing, and it's beautiful. Yeah. But it's a very Hebrew form of poetry. It's a lot of metaphor, and it's not overwrought in its language. And I'm not saying that the song is, but the song is more Baroque. The song
is more florid or floral, or I don't know.
It's something, yeah. And one thing that I think I didn't realize, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about this as this series goes on, is I, being primarily involved with the lyrical department and with poetry and with writing and all that, and coming from that kind of background, I never thought about how much music made a huge difference in these things, which is just like a duh kind of a thing. But it's like, sometimes you intentionally write simple lyrics because the music is going to be complicated. Sometimes, like in this case, you have a really beautiful melody that people can keep track of. You can get away with some more florid language, and but it's always about the interaction of the two things. And you don't have the song until so you could write the greatest poem in the world,
right?
And if there's not the right melody for it, then it's dead. Maybe we could release a book of...
structure prevents you from writing a melody to it at all.
Yeah, normally I would say the language, where we'll run into trouble is the language will be too overwrought, and then the music will need the language. Like sometimes you want to go with a simple phrase or a cliche even, something that in formal poetry you wouldn't like, but it makes a good song. It makes a good popular song. Which was a hard lesson for me because I wanted everything to live up to my standards of poetry, and my standards of poetry are John Donne and William Shakespeare, and I mean, not to be a snob, but that's the poetry that I've read and liked.
And John Donne would be very difficult to say.
Yeah, and so just watching the interaction between music and lyrics, realizing that something really simple can make a great chorus if it's got a great melody behind it, or even that something a little bit florid in its poeticism like this can live because of the melody. That was just an interesting lesson for me. And I don't think I'd really learned it by the time we released this song, but it's been an ongoing lesson. Is there anything else you guys want to say about Psalm 1 before we listen to this?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting way to start an album.
Yeah.
I know we were wrestling with the issue, like, how are we going to order all these songs? Are we just going to go in numerical order? Because you're going to have problems if you do that. And somehow I think it's all worked out fine. We've had 3 albums. They're in numerical order, and it just works out. But this one is a really interesting way to start an album.
It is.
But I think it's great. That's part of the reason I love it. I mean, just that opening guitar, ding, 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 and then you have the low upright bass. It just draws you in.
Well, what it reminds me, I can't think of a specific album that does this, but I know I've listened to a lot of albums that do this where there's almost a prelude, like there's a soft, quiet song that gets you involved.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of albums will have the first song is like the big hit. It's the statement of intention. This is who we are as a band. I'd say for us, and for a lot of my favorite albums that I can't think of right now, the second song is actually the statement of intention. Like, this is Psalm 2. This is who My Soul Among Lions is. This is what you're in for.
Yeah, there's often like a prelude or an interlude to start it out. And that's actually appropriate.
Right.
Here you have, the book of Psalms, and Psalm 1 really is a prelude to all the Psalms.
Exactly.
And so it works.
Yeah, and in a way, it actually works nicer than it would have been to have the other version, which would have maybe sounded a little bit more like some of the stuff that we've done since then. All right, let's listen to Psalm 1, Night and Day.
Oh, happy man that does not walk in paths that wicked men devise. He darkens not the sinner's lair, nor occupies the scoffer's chair. For his delight is in God's law, and to it he lifts up his eyes. He meditates upon it night and day. Night and day, both night and day. He meditates upon it night and day. Night and day, both night and day. God's law gets his attention night and day. He's like a tree that's planted deep inside the river waters wide, that bears in season its good fruit and keeps its leaves by some good root. That fertile root's the law of God, and on it does his soul survive. He drinks the life that feeds him night and day. Night and day, both night and day. He drinks the life that feeds him night and day. Night and day, both night and day. God's law will bless and keep him night and day. so, but they are like the chaff the wind drives out. They will not stand before the throne when all God's saints are gathered home. For he knows every one of them, but all the godless he'll destroy. I rest my soul upon it night and day, night and day, both night and day. I rest my soul upon it night and day, night and day, both night and day. I meditate upon it night and day. God's law gets my attention night and day, night and day, both night and day. I meditate upon it night and day.
Hey, if you like this song and you want to buy it, you can buy it on iTunes or Amazon or Bandcamp, all over the place. You can go right now and listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music. If you want charts, lead sheets, it's all available for free at clearnotesongbook.com. And if you want to support this work and get access to great new content as we write and produce new songs, go to patreon.com/MSAL, where you can sign up for as little as a cup of coffee a month. And right now, for the entire month of October, every one-time gift at warrenmedia.com gets you two things. It gets you a download of Tim Bayly's latest book, Church Reformed, in all of its e-text variations, and it gets you the latest full-length album from My Soul Among Lions, Song of the King, Volume 3, Psalms 21 through 30. So if you want all 10 of those Psalms 21 through 30 and a full-length studio album package, right now, a one-time gift in any amount at warrenmedia.com. Go, make it happen.